What is up, guys? Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. I am your host, Joe Lalgee, the realist recruiter. It is great to be with you guys. I'm actually filming this on Labor Day, so happy Labor Day to everybody, even though it'll be about a week till you hear this. But we have, seriously, tons to cover. I feel like this last week I took some time off, but man, there was some stuff that went down. So as always, I want to thank you guys for subscribing, following, tuning in. If you found any of these episodes helpful, I would encourage you to go to iTunes or Spotify, wherever you listen to the podcast, and please leave a review. And if there's episodes that you find helpful, you can go to the www.therealistrecruiter.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, and that way you can communicate with me. You can stay in touch with everything that we're doing on this podcast. As you know, I rebranded this podcast a couple months ago, and it's been great. We've got a couple of sponsors, which you'll hear about in this episode, but really appreciate all of you guys for making this podcast a hit. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Recruiting is No Joke. We'll be right back to this episode, but first, I wanted to thank this week's sponsors of the podcast, Source Whale. Source Whale is revolutionizing personalized outreach. It's not just user-friendly, it's a powerhouse with custom variables, automated follow-ups, and multi-channel capabilities, including phone, LinkedIn, email, and much more. Here's what makes it stand out. Users have seen an average increase of 56% in qualified response rates. With Source Whale, you're equipped with AI-powered tools like Content Coach and Whale GPT. This ensures that your messages rise above the rest, especially with Google's latest delivery updates. These tools have been trained on over 21 million pieces of top-performing outreach content, fine-tuning your strategy to secure better engagement, more meetings, and of course, higher revenue. Source Whale integrates seamlessly with your CRM and ATS. It automates the mundane, organizes your outreach, and even cues you on who to contact next, freeing you up to focus on what you do best, recruiting. Ready to revolutionize your outreach? Visit sourcewhale.com/realistrecruiter and see why thousands of top recruiters are making the switch today. So I wanted to start off today with a news article that it's somewhat not surprising, but might be surprising if you're not used to the company. And I don't even know, honestly, where to start with this. This is from USA Today. And I'm just going to read the headline, and I could almost just leave it there. But it says, Wells Fargo employee found dead at office desk 4 days after clocking in. Essentially, a woman working for Wells Fargo in Arizona died at work and was found 4 days later. She basically clocked in at 7 a.m. on August 16th and then was found dead on August 20th, leading security to find and call police. Now, you guys might not know this, but I actually used to work for Wells Fargo. So this is my former employee. And to be honest, my former employer, and honestly, I hear this news story, I'm not really that shocked. I mean, Wells Fargo is definitely one of those companies that talks about how great their culture is. When I worked for them back in 2012, 2013, 2014, they had this thing about treating customers with tons of respect. And then behind the scenes, we had crazy sales goals, and it caused lots of people actually in the retail portion of the bank to do illegal things to basically stay in line with the sales goals. So I'm not surprised that this happened at Wells Fargo. I think what I'm more kind of saddened by is this is the current state of affairs that we have. Companies, really, really big companies, forcing people back to the office, number one. I'm sure this job could have been done at home. But number two, it's like they don't even realize that someone has died in their company. Like, what kind of management is that? What kind of communication do you have with your team where you wouldn't know that someone in the team died? This basically means no one communicated with this person for 4 days until someone found them probably rotting. So I think it's really, really sad. Obviously, feel really terrible for the family involved. So if you know someone in that family, my heart goes out to them because I just think it's absolutely terrible and really sad. But also think it just says a lot about where corporate culture is at. Like you could literally die at one some of these big companies and you're just a number. Like they don't even know that you died. They don't even know your contribution. And it brings up a bunch of questions around how productive are some of these positions. Like if you don't know someone isn't doing work for 4 days, how productive can that position really be? And then it also just begs the question, like, how much do these companies really even care about employees? We wonder why employee turnover is at an all-time high, why employer trust is at an all-time low, and then you hear stories about this. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, does this shock you? Does this surprise you? It's really sadly, it's just to me, it's just not a shocking thing. Uh, so anyway, we had that happen, a couple weeks ago now. The next one I wanted to share is, basically people are really fearing layoffs right now. And so people are doing something that we call career cushioning. And I talk about this a lot in my content, particularly on TikTok and Instagram. I talk about this a lot. Like, there's no job that's secure, right? I don't care if you worked for a company for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, no job is secure. And so more and more people are fearing layoffs, rightly so, especially if you're working at a big tech company. I think you need to be bracing yourself for a layoff. If you're working at a large company, same thing. Particularly if you're in a department that's not doing well, if you're not sure about that, you need to talk to your manager. Um, but people are doing what we call career cushioning. So essentially, career cushioning is where you get your resume up to date. So you start to work on your resume to be prepared to start looking for jobs. Next thing you do is you start networking with people. You start reaching out to people that you know, that you've worked with, start seeing what opportunities are out there. And then lastly, you start learning new skills. Um, a ton of resources to learn new skills. I'm not talking necessarily certifications, but there's lots of courses that you could take online. You could take a course in copywriting. You could take a course in communication, in writing. There's literally hundreds of these courses. They're pretty cheap. But I think we're going to see more and more of this. Like as people continue and as we start to see as we continue to see these companies laying off people, we're going to see more people starting to career cushion. So it's basically a way to keep yourself safe. Because really you got to prepare for the worst. And if you watch any of my content, one thing I say all the time is, loyalty is basically dead. This is just not the same time period that, your grandparents grew up in where you would work a job for like decades and then really retire nicely and live comfortably. It just isn't like that anymore. I mean, I think when Google laid off, they had a huge layoff maybe 2 years ago. And I remember like hearing about people who'd worked at the company for 20 years and suddenly their logins don't work and they're just out of the system. And I think that is a wake up call. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, doesn't matter. Um, it just really does not matter right now how long you've worked at the company, what industry you're in. People are susceptible to this. So we've seen this happen, career cushioning. So let me know. I would love to hear from you guys. Again, you could go to www.therealistrecruiter.com, sign up for the newsletter. That newsletter will go right to your inbox, and then we can communicate. I would love to hear from you. Like, is this something that you're actively doing? Are you upskilling yourself? Are you networking? Um, I think networking is a big one that I encourage anybody to do, but particularly job seekers or people who are open to jobs. Networking, it comes up a lot. We hear it a lot. To me, networking is just relationships. So the first line of people that you should be reaching out to if you're in this situation is people you've worked with in the past, um, clients you've worked with in the past, people that you have had as boss in the past, basically anybody in your ecosystem that you've worked with professionally. Reach out to those people, see what companies they're at. Do a little bit of research though, like look up their company, see what positions they have open that you would be a fit for / interested in. And then when you're on a call with them, in the last 5-10 minutes, just say, hey, by the way, I'm on the market for something new. Would love to hear about more about this position. Do you know what the latest is? And you get a ton of information because they might even tell you, actually, yeah, they're not hiring for that job. It's a ghost job. Oh, ghost job. Maybe we'll get to that one this week. But because there's some recruiters that are saying there aren't ghost jobs, but maybe they'll just say, hey, yeah, that position was put on hold, or they're at final interview, so you can save some time. Or they might say, actually, yeah, you know what? I know Dave, the hiring manager, you would be a great fit for this. Let me get you into the system. And that's how you become a warm referral, which we all know. If you're a referral, you do stand a better chance of getting an interview. Doesn't mean you can not work hard in the interview. Doesn't mean that you're not going to be competing against other people. But a lot of times those referrals can get you in. So you got that type of networking. And then the other type of networking that you can do, and I've been talking about this a lot in a level, essentially there is a lot of these online groups. So like when the pandemic happened, a lot of these online groups started forming, and you got online groups for marketing, sales, recruiting, HR. And if you're interested in these communities, just literally do a search on Google, like whatever industry, whatever skill set, community online, and you'll likely find some Discord channels, some Slack channels. If you get in those communities, you can meet a lot of people who are in the same industry as you or in the same position. And a lot of them will have job boards. And so the people who are in the community post to these job boards can be a great way to find some jobs. And then if you're interested in a job, it's easier to find who posted it because they're going to be in a community. You reach out to them, you already have common kind of bond because you're in the community. So I think that's great networking. And then the last type of networking you can do is just events. And I feel like this one is really underrated because it's misunderstood. But if you go to events locally, it doesn't even have to be industry. Just go meet people. Like meeting people face to face. If you go to an event and you meet 5 people, and then you meet them, have a good conversation, nothing to do with the job, just have a conversation. And you follow up with them on LinkedIn, see what company they're at, see what jobs they have. And it's that same thing. It's almost like those people that you worked with in the past, or anyone in your professional sphere that you've worked with, you can follow up with them. Hey, I met you at this event, would love to catch up. And you use that same game plan. You have a conversation with them, find out what they're up to, have more professional conversation than you would have had at the networking event. And then if you've done your homework, you might have 3 or 4 positions you're interested in at the company they're at, and you can ask them, hey, what's up? What's going on with this position? And they're likely to give you more information than just cold applying. So that's like how you network, and I think that's how you can start to cushion your career. So if you haven't been networking, I've been networking the last 5 years in the recruiting field. And I could tell you that over the last couple of years, creating content online has really helped with this. But then meeting people, it's been huge. And the last 3 jobs that I've had, I have not had to apply to them. I've just got them through my network. Literally, people reaching out to me, or they saw on LinkedIn I was open to something new. And last time I went to look for a job, I just DM'd 3 people I knew who were at companies, got interviews right away, and got 3 offers. And then I just picked which one I wanted. Shout out to Hirewell on that. It's my old company I used to work for. But there's so much job security, and they have that term, your net worth, or your network is your net worth. And what that means is, like, as you're growing, the more people you know professionally, the more people you can call when you need a job or you need a new opportunity. So if haven't been networking and you have a job, start networking right now. But more and more professionals doing this, and they are calling it career cushioning. So let me know if you've been career cushioning. I would love to hear this. The next news story I want to cover, this one, I just saw this in the news today. So um, Japan apparently wants its hardworking citizens to try a 4-day work week. And basically, they have expressed a desire. The Japanese government back in 2021 expressed support for a shorter work week, and it's been a little slow to catch on. But however, more and more companies are jumping onto this, and especially among like the smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, we are seeing more and more of this now. I am personally a huge fan of the 4-day work week. Apologies if you hear this. I've been a huge fan of the 4-day work week, and this was from apnews.com, basically just talking about it. So if you want to go check that out, and the headline was Japan wants its hardworking citizens to try a 4-day work week. Um, Now, look, I am a huge fan of this style of work. I think because if we look at it, even in the US, if we look at how much work is actually done during the week, I don't think there's that much work done. And I think we have a lot of meetings, weekly meetings, which, it's nice seeing people, but can't always say that those meetings have been that productive. Client meetings, 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 meetings. That's this like idea that the more meetings we have, somehow it's productive. But I've also noticed that, particularly on Fridays, Fridays in the summer, people are checked out. Most people I know just would, especially once things went remotely, they would just take off, half a day on Friday. So I just start to wonder how needed is a 5-day work week. Also think with the technology that we have, AI, supposedly it's supposed to make us more efficient. So why are we using this technology if we can actually work less? And just to clarify, I know that some people say you have like the 4 10s. So if you work in a 40-hour work week instead of just having 4 days of work, like sometimes people are like, oh, well, let's just cram the hours into 4 days. I'm not a fan of that, but I am literally a fan of, if you're working 40 hours a week, let's have it 32 hours a week. And the only kind of industries I think this would be tough in would be those that are like labor based. So I think of like construction, manufacturing, where like the more time you work, the more you get done. But for I would say the bulk of these corporate jobs, I don't know why we don't have a 4-day work week. I think it would be massive. I think then companies could offer like less pay time off even because people wouldn't be working. I think you'd have less burnout. I think it would be great, and I think it would just force people to really look at how they're spending their time throughout the week, and just become more efficient. So again, go to www.therealistrecruiter.com, sign up for the newsletter, and let me know. Were you a fan? What do you think of this 4-day work week that Japan is going to be rolling out? Next story I want to take a look at. I don't know about you, use here too. So hold on. It says job. So this is what the text says: job offers through text. Be careful. It's likely a scam. And for any of you guys that don't see this, there's a message from a screenshot. And it says, "Happy Sunday. I'm Sarah from Manpower Recruiting. Shout out to Manpower. I have a good remote job offer. Can I send you the work deals?" I don't know how many of you guys have gotten these emails, but I've been getting them from like Insight Global, apparently Manpower. I've gotten these messages. If you get one of these messages, I just want to let you know it's a scam. Okay, so do not go anywhere near this, because I've been getting more and more people who have been seeing that they're getting, these messages. And there's another one here that says, "Hi, I'm Grace Mill from AMN Healthcare in the United States. We have a remote work opportunity that you might like. If you don't mind, can I share the details with you?" Another one here: "Hi, I'm Josephine, HR assistant from Tandem Group." And usually it's like these are all from um, recruitment agencies, but then this is one too. "Hello, this is TikTok Recruitment Center. TikTok is one of the most popular short form video applications." Yeah, okay, we've never heard of it. "With more than 2 billion active users per month, so companies need a rich talent pool. We are now recruiting 3,000 TikTok reserve talents." Guys, if you are getting messages like this, just know that they're a scam. But there's other scams, like um, things that I would be wary of just in general, is people reaching you out of the blue. If you go to their LinkedIn profile, or they're texting you and they don't have any links there to reply, that's very scammy. And then just take a look, like particularly if recruiters are reaching out to you. I get this question all the time. You got to look at their profile on LinkedIn. Go look at the company they have listed. Does it look like a legitimate company? If you click on there and it's got like 7 people and they all have kind of sketchy looking profiles, it's probably not a real thing. But as soon as they start asking for personal information, you just got to know it is a scam. So beware. And it doesn't mean that every time you get a text, it's a scam. Like I send texts to candidates when I'm looking to recruit them. But if they start asking for that personal information, I just think you've got to move on from that. And the last news story for today that I wanted to cover. So this is on Labor Day. So reporting live says Labor Day strike hits U.S. hotels. About 10,000 workers in cities from Boston to Honolulu went on strike over the busy holiday weekend as they called for better pay and working conditions, including a return to pre-pandemic staffing levels. The walkouts involved housekeepers, front desk staff, other employees, could expand to additional cities. Um, so, guys, I think what's interesting here is, and I read some of the commentary on this as well, is, there is a clear shortage of workers in these spaces. In hospitality, there's a huge shortage of workers, and hospitality is like, that could be anywhere, anything from these hotel jobs to, really food service positions, or like, maybe you're working in a restaurant as a server. This whole hospitality field has been completely rocked since 2020. Like, since the pandemic, a lot has shifted. And, there's a lot of if you read on some of these commentary and you read on some of these articles, there's tons of open jobs. But when you look at why a lot of these people are going on strike, it's because of low pay, a lot of hours, being stretched thin, not being paid enough, right? And so, another industry which is like this is teaching. Like, you want to be a teacher right now, you get a teaching job. There's a lot of need for teachers, but again, it's it's the need is there because teachers aren't paid well. It's a stressful job, and it's just not really looked after. Like, the cap that you can make, I don't even know how you can really survive in some of these cities. Um, when getting paid that much. So that's my thought with that. It's like, realistically, I think these industries, they need to pay more, and they need to treat people better. Healthcare, that's another one. Like, I'm always hearing healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. There's jobs. It's like, yeah, there's jobs. I know a lot of people who are nurses, and they start off with their really crappy like schedule. They got to work third shift or something. It's not convenient, and then it's just like they're not treated well. Like, I've got somebody I know who I'm fairly close with. They work at a hospital system, and the most they got for a Christmas bonus was like a $25 gift card, while the CEO is getting millions of dollars. And I'm not saying like that person should get millions of dollars, but if the best you could do is a $30 gift card for a bonus, like, just keep it. But that's what I'm saying. These environments that need a lot of jobs, because it's not because like people aren't even interested in those fields. It's because anybody who's in those fields is also wanting to leave because you treat it poorly. And going back to this hospitality, yeah, there's a lot of hospitality jobs, but if all of the current workers are on strike because the pay isn't there, and they're working and they're overworked, and they're super stressful, that's not really good employer branding for those types of positions. So I think with a lot of these industries, yes, you do got to pay more. You've got to figure out ways to offer flexibility. Manufacturing is another example of this. Line workers in manufacturing, can make okay money, $25 an hour. But again, let's be honest here. If you're making $25 an hour, that's $50K a year. In some cities, you can't even rent an apartment. Rent an apartment's 2,000, 2,500. You're making $50K a year. You better hope that the person that you're with is also making $50K. If you're alone, I don't really know how you survive. So to me, it is a case of, you got to raise the price. You got to raise how much you're paying. You got to think of better incentives. Maybe it's a quarterly bonus for staying there another quarter to promote retention. Maybe there's profit sharing that the companies can do. Maybe there's options to where you can have some flexibility and you could pick your schedules. But I think, but these companies, they got to realize, like, if you're driving big profits, which a lot of these companies are driving really, really big profits, exception there would be in the school systems. I'm not sure I have a solution for that, but you got to pay people more. Otherwise, they're just going to constantly be attracted to the jobs right now, which just are not in demand, which are those corporate jobs. Everybody wants that cushy corporate job. Ideally, people want to work remotely, but those are the most competitive jobs right now. So look, my thought is, if you're on the job market, you might have to consider taking one of these jobs. But I think long term, for these industries survives, they gotta pay better. They gotta treat people better. They gotta create better environments to work. And this is actually where I do think that AI can come in and help with some of this stuff, because I think there's AI and automation and technology that could make some of these jobs more efficient. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to have robot workers, like AI house cleaners that are cleaning rooms, And you still need a housekeeper to make sure it's working right and it's getting things, but maybe the housekeeper's just kind of monitoring it, making sure things are being done, giving it cleaning supplies. I don't know, kind of spitballing here, but this is where like AI and automation could help. Front desk at a hotel, maybe you have a kiosk where you can just check in. I think they already have that at some hotels. But it was figuring out how do we balance some of these work shortages in a way as well. And so I think sometimes people are like, oh, AI is going to take jobs. It's like, well, some of these industries, they're not taking any jobs. It's not taking any jobs. In fact, it's just replacing people because nobody wants to work these jobs, which I think is a good thing. So let me know, what are your thoughts with this, with some of these industries? Do they just need to pay better? What do they need to do? And last reminder here, if you go to www.therealistrecruiter.com, you can sign up for the newsletter. I give a summary each week of this podcast. And look, if you're interested in getting involved too, if you want to be a guest, you want to be a sponsor, you can reach out to me on there. But that is it for this week. So we've had a lot. We've had a Wells Fargo employee dying. They didn't realize it for 5 years. We got workers on strike. We got the 4-day work week in Japan, which I'm a huge fan of. And then we got people cushioning because they're afraid of being laid off. So if you've got questions, you got thoughts, you got comments, go to www.therealistrecruiter.com, sign up for that newsletter, get a hold of me. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's Joel Lalgee. Or you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere else, The Realist Recruiter. It's been an awesome episode. I cannot wait to the next episode. Thank you so much for our sponsors for this show. It's been real, and we'll be back next week with a brand new episode of Recruiting is No Joke. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a good rest of the week.